Hey everyone, Meteorologist Aaron Tuttle here with you, watching those storms that have been going on into eastern Oklahoma over the last couple of hours, and now a couple of them have become tornadic as far as radar signatures go. We had a spotter that had at least a funnel at one point in view, so we'll start to cover those storms now, in anticipation of them becoming tornadic and officially touching the ground, maybe doing some damage, that kind of deal. So we're going to see how that goes with time here. Let's see. I'm going to have to check on a couple of my sources here just a second. Make sure all my broadcasts are up and running. Let's see. Let me just check something here real quick and then we'll get started. All right. Just want to make sure I'm up on all platforms. Sometimes that can become an issue. Let's see. All right. So it looks like a rumble is the one that's rumbling. So I'm going to stop that recording just because it's not going to behave, it looks like. But that sometimes happens with them. I don't know why, what their issue is, but we can toggle it off so it's not a problem. Okay. All right. The rest of them should be good to go, so just bear with me here another second, and then we shall. All right, so while that's going, let's go ahead and take a look at the radar. Show you what we're talking about as far as the area of concern. So this is out here across, like I said, eastern Oklahoma. So if you're watching from Oklahoma City, for right now, there's nothing happening here in our neck of the woods. The surface trough is kind of pushed a little east of us. So anything that tries to initiate from this point forward is going to have to be, Creek County, Okfuskee, Seminole, towards Shawnee, Ada. That's about the closest it'd be able to do so. So basically that's in this area here that you see on the map, and then otherwise things will be kind of continue to progress out here in this part of the country, which is basically the eastern part of the state. So about 3 or so counties inland from Arkansas. All right, so let me see. Let me do this. Okay. All right, so first off, let's talk about the tornadic storm up here across northeast Oklahoma. This is the one coming out of Pryor in Mays County, now moving through Adair and then up to Pensacola. So right now, Adair is getting the heavy rainfall. The probability of a tornado on this is about 56%, so that's kind of the highest it's been so far. The couplet showing on the radar is still a little bit of broad, in other words, a little diffuse. It's not well tightened up, which indicates to me right now it probably hasn't quite touched down. We'll look at some of these other parameters, and I don't see any damage as far as radar reflectivity structures go. So it's kind of one of those deals where it's rotating hard. It has a wall cloud, and it could touch down at any moment, even as we sit here and talk about it. When we look underneath that area of circulation, right now we've got a couple of farmhouses, otherwise a lot of open acreage here. So there are a few homes in its path. Otherwise, after it gets past this little point in time, it does come up here. We follow this little yellow line, and that is all areas that's open farmland with no homes. So that's the good news there. So let's see if we can prevent it from becoming officially tornadic on the ground while it still has a couple of homes in its path. But regardless, you're going to want to seek shelter if you live in this area. And I'll show you the intersection of this, of where this particular tornado is trying to develop. Let's see, North 4360 Road and the other crossroad from that. Let's see here. Show it to me. I just jotted north on the new scan. So move it to North Road 4370 and south of Strange Road. It's kind of in between the two that I highlighted. And with that new update, let's see what the velocity data looks like. Still about the same. All right, that's good. The mesocell rotation history on this one, just new. So in other words, it's kind of the very first, this little green spot you see on the map is the first area of where it looks like it was trying to get its act together. So the new scan might get a little stronger, indicating a little bit better circulation within that. So right now, the outbound and inbound winds seem to accompany that idea. In other words, some gradual intensification with this. In other words, a little bit better wind speed development. So it is getting a little bit tighter. In other words, I'll show it to you here. We're looking at this region right here. So this is where you have, like we always talk about, and you hear the term red and green, right? So this is the green, and this is actually winds blowing toward the radar. And the red is winds blowing away from the radar. So you want to look for the spot in between, and that is your developing tornadic circulation. And when it's usually pretty close to the radar, we can get a very good low-level look to it. And I'm, let's see, about 20 miles away. That puts about 1,400 feet off the ground. So that's plenty of good visual for the radar to be able to tell whether or not that's going to be a tornadic circulation. So if this starts to get a little bit tighter and stronger, we'll know for sure. But right now, it's pretty close. So it's moving still to the north. That intersection is outlined. So it's now heading up north of Strange Road and north of that intersection of 4370. But again, it currently is over this open little farmland right here. Okay, so that's a look at the one that is just northeast of Tulsa. We'll come back and look at that one here in a second. Another little storm cluster down here around Muskogee on the east side of town. Nothing tornadic with that one, so that's good news there. And then back down here toward Eufaula, this particular storm at one point had a wall cloud associated with it. Reported. Let's take a look at the velocity data with this one. And it was also kind of broad and diffuse on the eastern side. I don't see anything different from that. Let's take a look at this one. It's even more diffuse than the other one. Now we are at quite a bit of difference away. We're about 4,000 feet elevation. So that's going to put it kind of at the top of what would be the column of the atmosphere where you could even detect a tornado with Doppler radar. So it's a little far away from the radar, but right now the signatures that I'm seeing are not that indicative of a surface-based touchdown. When I do look for any ground signature, as far as like what we call the dual pole debris signature, in other words, where it picks up trees and throws them around and stuff, I don't see that in the radar data right now. So that's good news. So this, again, there's 2 tornado warnings in effect. By the way, this one has a probability of a tornado of 53%. This one's down here in McIntosh County, so if you look around Eufaula, it is now pressed to the northeast of you, on the northeast side of town, heading up toward Texana and Dutchess Landing, eventually kind of passing east between Chakota and Warner along I-40 here in a few minutes. So we're going to do some storm tracks for this, and we'll kind of stick with both of these, and we're going to basically just find out if we're going to be dealing with something that's going to cause some problems, or if it's going to remain under control. Let's see. So, let's see here. All right, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to kill that one. Let's go back up to this northern where it had the best circulation at one point. Ooh, it's already kind of fallen apart in that last scan. We'll see if it strengthens on the next one. Yeah, even the rotation parameter with it. See that little green dot? See how it has weakened and gone away? So the Weather Service will continue with the warning, but the circulation has actually weakened quite a bit. Let's see here. All right, so the official warning wording that just came out for this update, at 5:47, tornado warning remains in effect until 6:15 for southeastern Craig County, west central Delaware, and northeastern Mays counties. Severe thunderstorm with strong low-level rotation that could produce a tornado at any time was located 4 miles east of Adair, moving northeast at 40 miles per hour. Let's see. Some of the communities involved with this is Langley, Ketchum, Big Cabin, Cleora, Strange, Park, Adair, Disney, Pensacola, Cherokee State Park, and Disney Little Blue State. Also includes Interstate 44 between mile marker 283 and 289. So that's in that first tornadic storm. Let's zip down to the second one. And this guy here, let's see, its update came out just a few minutes ago at 5:42. It continues to have a tornado warning in effect until 6:15 for west central Haskell, eastern McIntosh, and north central Pittsburgh counties. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado is located over Eufaula, moving northeast at 50. Let's see here. Some of the paths, of course, Eufaula, but now it's in the northeast of you. Let's see. Rennesville, Vivian, Chakota, Lake Eufaula State Park, and Onapah. Also includes Interstate 40 between mile marker 257 and 273, as it'll cross that area here in a minute. Probability of a tornado, though, on this one has gone down to 38%, so it's dropped. Now, There's a good amount of inbound wind toward the radar with this. So it won't take much to get something to spin up on the other side of it just because of differentiation of the wind. We saw something like this the other day with the QLCS. We had a really strong inbound wind jet, and when it hit just right, it spun up a brief EF2 tornado. That was down around with the southern parts of I-35 a few weeks ago. So we'll watch to see if that kind of a trend continues. But again, right now, I don't see anything currently. But again, it's moving over Texana here on the west side, and then Dutchess Landing here momentarily after that. So those are 2 tornadic thunderstorms in Oklahoma. Those are official tornado warnings at this point in time. These are all Doppler indicated. So in other words, I don't see anything from an official sighting from a storm spotter in the field. And there are, of course, emergency management out there as well. So those are what we'll be watching for. I'm going to look at a couple of other radar estimates, different radar views. All right, and still seeing the same idea, which is a diffuse weak circulation center on let's see, that one and this one as well. Okay, so good on both of those. Okay, and sometimes this happens. You get the tornado warning that comes out doesn't always guarantee a tornado. It just means conditions are favorable, the storm is rotating, and it's at a position where it could. Doesn't mean it always will. There are different degrees of tornado warnings, so you could have, we have these little red polygons to indicate a tornado warning, but we can also have like a purple one. Now, a purple one that comes out usually means that it's been sighted, and then what that means is, yeah, it's official. Somebody saw it in an official capacity, and that means that, yeah, you're going to have to seek shelter for that one, obviously, and then they'll word it as to whether or not it's doing damage. And then that kind of stuff, a little bit more detail. So it's kind of more of a sterner, more strict warning-based information. Okay. So, of course, you're going to have some lightning associated with this. Again, probability of tornado on this one still at 58% that we talked about. Let's see. And this is around Big Cabin, just south of Anita. Get some of these things loaded up here. Now there is official tornado watch in effect, and that's in this yellow area. Bounded here, you can see just on the map. So comes along I-35, just clips Oklahoma City out of it, and then back down to the south from there, just east of Ardmore, back along the Red River, and then continues on into southeast Oklahoma and the Arkansas border. Next extends on upward into southeastern Missouri. Nothing right now in southeastern Missouri. There are a few storms out here in this region around Elk City, but they're not severe, and they're not producing anything that would be tornadic. And you have the older tornado watch from earlier this afternoon out here across eastern central and western Arkansas. And they did have a couple of tornado warnings out there. I don't know if anything was officially grounded, but there at least were a few warnings. And then out here in eastern Texas on into northwestern Louisiana, still some counties highlighted here in yellow, which indicates they are still underneath a potential tornado risk for their region. So quite a little bit of severe weather for our day 2 of January. Okay, so let's see. Let's go. What I wanted to do with this. Again, we'll watch to see if this thing strengthens in intensity. But for right now, this is the kind of the times of arrival. Pensacola at 5:53, Langley at 5:59, Disney 6:03. You got Ketchum 6:05, Grove at 6:28. So this is about over the next half hour for this particular storm. We'll go to the one down here in Chakotah, and we'll take what was the leading edge of the circulation. Crowder, of course, as we've come and gone on that deal. Let's see what else we got. Porham and Warner. So this kind of takes it back to when it was first issued, because it needs a new warning update, which they'll do here soon if it's still going to hold the circulation with it. So Porham over the next few minutes, and Warner will be the newest ones for that. I believe this might be one of the newer ones. Yeah, there we go. 6:05 for Warner, 6:20 for Braggs, and 6:25 for Paradise Hill for this particular storm. Again, if you're kind of joining late, there's nothing here in central Oklahoma. This is all across the east for right now. We did have a few storms bubble up just east of the metro, and then they kind of raced off to the north and east. We haven't really had anything since in our neck of the woods. It's all continued to be up here in northeastern Oklahoma. All right, let me take a look at a couple of more data sources on this. Let's see. All right. So a lot of this is just basically going back and forth and looking at radar data to see if we can't get a signature of a potential tornado out of this. Let me check some of the other products for this guy up here, and these have all really fallen apart. That's great news. Let's see. Probability of a tornado has come down to 39% as well for this guy over here, and just passing to the north and west of Langley and still heading up toward Ketchum. So what happens is in this situation, you can sigh, a brief sigh of relief, like, phew, it's not on the ground, it's not doing damage, that kind of a deal. However, it's still in an area where development could reoccur, and until that threat passes, you want to stay in your shelter. So the bottom of my screen, just take a look at it. It's always the same. Anytime I do a live broadcast, I put the same information on there so that you can always just put it right here. You're always good to go. But it's always away from all outside walls and windows. So if you're new to Oklahoma, you're from California, New York, Colorado, Washington, you've traveled in, and you're like, hey, I've heard a lot about this stuff. Yeah, that's the way you do it. It's away from all outside walls and windows. Lowest floor could be a bathroom, a closet, underneath the stairwell, whatever you got, it's the centermost part of your home, unless, of course, you have a storm shelter. So those how we handle this activity in Oklahoma. Okay, let me do an update here on the speed. All right, nothing there. That looks okay. All right, look down here as well. Still watch this little inbound area of wind, but it doesn't have anything on the back end. On the west side here of Dutchess Land is very strong. So this is the track of what the tornadic circulation would be. So let's see here. Let's give you the latest. Well, it's over a little riverbed right now. Closest road to be coming up to is North Road 4270 and East Road 1120. That's the intersection that this wall cloud will be traveling overhead here in a little bit. If you look down here, of course, there's the lake. There's some little river feeders that come into the lake, but you can see how it's not really over any populated area. That's a good place for it, right? So there are eventually, I see a couple little farmhouses in the path, just a couple. So we'll see, again, what happens over the next 10 minutes as it either continues to weaken or if it tries to re-strengthen. Now, the structure of the storm itself looks pretty anemic. Probability of the tornado has gone down to 18%. So in other words, it keeps weakening with its ability to do so. So here's where over Crowder and Canadian, it had a little wall cloud earlier reported with it. And then there was a little brief funnel that was reported with it when it first started. And that's what triggered the tornado warning here just north of McAllister. So that's kind of the history of where this one has been at. I don't see any official markers for this one. Let's see, north of it, Muskogee, so nothing has come out of that one. And then finally the one up here, northeast of Tulsa. At one point, it looked pretty decent. Not quite would appear to be a tornado on the ground situation, but at least the rotation tightened up briefly. Then it quickly fell apart. But anyway, that's up there around the Ketchum region. Okay, so let's see. Let me think what else. Let's do this. The other thing that can occur in some of these stronger storms is hail. So I was going to look at some hail sizes and some of the data and see if anything substantial has come out of it. The forecast sounding said we could get up to about 2-inch size hail was the prediction level. So let me see if we've got any of that, any of this data, while we're waiting to see if anything happens with the tornado probability of it, right? All right, hail size. Let's see. Maybe up to 1 inch on that one. So not big hail there. The one down here southwest of Cedar Crest, also about 1 inch. So none of those are anything to write home about. The one here in along I-40 crossing over the interstate now, again about 1 inch. So close to 1 inch size hail is what the algorithms are estimating with this. Now I will tell you that if we don't get some additional circulation within this, typically the Weather Service will drop the tornado warning and just let it ride as a severe thunderstorm warning. Sometimes with some wording in there, a wording that may say something to aware of. Severe thunderstorm warnings can and often do produce tornadoes, with limited amount of warning. Kind of a little caveat. Just kind of a heads up that it had a history of producing tornadoes and it might still try to do so. Whereas there's no imminent threat, so they can't keep a tornado warning going forever if there's not going to be an imminent threat. So they kind of just half-step it, and then they'll pull the trigger again once they get confirmation from visual cues out in the field, or if the radar starts to show better data for that. But regardless, this little batch of circulation that's continuing to move past Dutchess Landing. Let's see, new data coming in. Probability of a tornadoes dropped to 10%, so even weaker. It still has this little bit of an inflow jet signature right here, this little blue spot. So I'm still a little curious as to whether or not something may try to wrap up, but it's getting weaker and weaker. So kind of it's running out of time. This thing has really wound down in intensity over the last, 10 minutes really since I got on here to cover this. So they did have some official 1 inch size hail reports coming into McIntosh County near Onapa. So at least the radar algorithms are correct as far as hail size estimations. All right, back up here to northeast Oklahoma we go. Probability of a tornado up here dropping to 37%. It looks very disorganized from what it was. Tail end of this is all linear structure. It's got doesn't even have what we call a little hook echo appearance. Doesn't even have that. So it is, for all intents and purposes, a done deal. Now, remember what I say. Until the official warning is canceled, still stay in your shelters until they cancel the warning. And that warning will cover through Cleora and, again, past Ketchum over the next 10 minutes. And then that's it. So 5 to 10 minutes more, and this warning is going to expire anyway. So nothing has developed since then. So they'll probably just let it expire on its own merit, which I believe is at 6:15 officially. So that does mean even though the next 10 minutes, the warning may continue to be in effect, there's nothing on the radar to indicate that a tornado is present or likely. But we'll continue to watch it just in case that does change here for the next few minutes. But again, right now, the structure I see to it has really fallen apart. Okay, down here to the south from there to Locust Grove. Let's see, Hobart. Some decent structure here trying to take shape, but don't see anything in the velocity data that gets my attention. And then back south from there. Let's see here. Chakota to Warner. Between the two is the heaviest core. That's just north of 40. There's one little hint of the circulation center crossing over 40 at this point in time. It's right along McIntosh County, North Road 4920. And of course, I-40 and bounded by East Road 1080 on the south end of that. So that's where that leftover circulation is residing. So if that particular case, anybody in that vicinity may have seen like a wall cloud with it. All right. So, Weather Service issued a statement here confirming what I just told you about, which is the storm in eastern McIntosh is less organized, so a severe thunderstorm warning will be extended downstream of it. And the tornado warning continuing while we evaluate. In other words, they'll take one more last look to see if it's worthy of continuous warning. Otherwise, they're going to let the severe take shape. Okay, and then back down here from there, McAllister's another little storm, some lightning with it. Otherwise, no big deal there. And then back down here, way in southern Oklahoma, some new storms down here, and a little bit of hail with those, small hail, but otherwise nothing that screams tornadic or anything like that. And won't be much longer at 6 o'clock, so 7 to 8 o'clock. By 7 o'clock, this storm here will be out of the state into probably the Joplin region, or if it even holds together. What's left of this cluster will certainly be there. And then southward from that, these guys will probably linger again about 8 o'clock by the time they finally hit the border, what's left of them. And then we'll see if anything else forms after that, kind of in this zone. This is still the favored zone for new development, which is basically kind of in this zone here. So we might get some redevelopment here, and as well as just in other areas here in southeast Oklahoma, which is kind of what the model data had alluded to in the last couple of days. All right, that one still looks good. And when I say looks good, it means no tornado. A lot of lightning, though, north of that for Afton and up toward 44. Probability of a tornado kind of went up a little bit from 10% to 34%. But when I look at the velocity data, there isn't anything that shows you of concern. It's all linear-based stuff. So what that probably means that some mid-level rotations increase somewhat. Okay, and then down here, this probability is at 20%. And it's actually moved out of, I believe, that little tornado warning polygon. It's just about to. It's just about one more block over. And it'll be out of this little red line here, which is the polygon for the tornado. All right, so they're going to drop the tornado warning up here in northeast Oklahoma. So they're going to let that one go. So they'll probably just replace it with a severe thunderstorm warning. They haven't probably had any hail reports out of this. I don't see any. Let me see if the hail sizes are still there. Yeah, about an inch at most. So they'll probably replace it with a severe, and then just monitor trends. The probability of a tornado is dropping back down at 22%. The highest, I believe, I saw on both of these for a tornadic potential is right around 54%, and that's when I came on to cover this. After that, it kind of held its own for a little bit, and then it started dropping, and it has not recovered since. All right, this one down here, one more look, same idea. Okay, so the little circulation center is jotted a little east of the polygon, so it's out of the box, and whatever leftover circulation there is along US 26. And this is actually kind of a newer circulation feature, actually, which isn't surprising. So the old one's dead. We'll see if this one does anything. But right now it's not. But it's not even anything's left in where the official tornado warning was. So we're going to monitor both of these. And so while we wait, give us a couple minutes. I can do a little around the world tour here of some other data. All right, so this was the tornado watch that was issued here this afternoon in red. And they had some wording on here of a moderate risk of EF2 tornadoes, severe risk of high winds for moderate, anywhere 65 knots or higher, and hail sizes moderate up to 2 inches. So they had some pretty decent parameters that these storms had the potential of doing. They just haven't quite reached that level, and they may not, which is of course fine, but that's what the data indicated. If we look at the surface map, let's do a little analysis here real quick. So one of the issues that we had today was a convoluted surface pattern with an area of low pressure, kind of in two areas that one never really got well established. We kind of had this dueling region. And so what that does is it kind of creates some issues here in the data that links the two. But you usually would have and we do, kind of have this surface trough that kicks out ahead of it. And it kind of does something like this, where you have these winds that come in from the southwest that punch into this region. So that brings in slightly drier air at the surface, sometimes significantly drier air. It's really not technically a dry line, it's just a surface boundary, surface trough. But it did bring in dew points about 5 to 10 degrees lower, so argue with what you want semantics-wise, but what it does is it kills the ability to get some storms going when you're in this drier, more stable air. And then also a loft around 850 millibars usually brings in drier, hotter air as well, which can increase the cap strength and also help remove your chances of precipitation. On the back end of the low, in this region, is usually where you get your cold front that forms. And then this little front comes on in at the end of the system once these lows finally kick out. And of course, out ahead of it is where you have the warm and stable air, which is off the chart here, where you have your warm front, which came in earlier this morning. So this, all in this area, is what we call the warm sector. And so the warm sector is where you get the instability that feeds in. And you can get these, as long as the atmosphere is not very capped, you can get repetitive, random showers of storms that develop. Now today, we were on the leading edge of a cap that was kind of holding things across central Oklahoma. I posted a sounding on Twitter at lunchtime, which showed it was just barely there, but it was enough, it looks like, to kind of keep things quiet here in the metro. And then just east, the cap was weak enough for them to break. So that's why more activity out across the eastern parts of the state was expected versus central and certainly western. Western just wasn't really in the game with this particular event. But this colder air will eventually filter in tonight and bring things down as far as tomorrow is concerned. So don't expect another nice day tomorrow like we had today. Let's see another view of the same surface map here out across the area. So you do have that instability that continues all across this region as well. So that's why the threat will continue there during the early part of the evening. Let's take a look here at the satellite view. I've got the streamlines for convergence overlaid on here as well. So where you've got these winds here out of a south and easterly direction, that's where you have your best convergence into storms, in other words, best low-level storm relative inflow. And that helps them to generate a little bit more on the severity side, get a little stronger, a little taller, feeding into a little bit better instability and a little better shear. All right, when we look at the bad wind profile for the photographs, let's see, this is for Fort Smith. So I picked them here on this particular data point. And this little box here is a classic supercell type structure. Critical angle though is 35, which is a little low for tornadoes, but you still get some heavy, severe storms out of that with some hail, which is probably one of the reasons why those storms are kind of having a tough time once they get to that area of holding together. In Tulsa, here's another better look at that structure. This is a classic structure this is wind versus height for supercell structures, so that's why we have those kind of an appearance in some of those storms out there, although they're a little ugly. They're not quite clean. And the reason why they're not clean is because this wind field here is messy. It's dirty. It's not a nice, smooth, laminar flow. If you had something that went like this, then that would be quite a different story. But right now, it comes in, it's all jagged, it's going loopy-loop, back and forth, and then comes up here and does a squiggly, and then that just messes up the exhaust structure for the storm, so that they don't come out pretty, and makes it harder for the tornado development to occur. Critical angle is also at 38. Your minimum should be at 45. So we're not even at the minimum for tornadic storms in Tulsa. So that's probably why that storm had a tough time and just couldn't quite get its act together. Let's see, when we look at the climatology for this environment up here, let's see, this data point's not even bringing in any data. Oh, why is it doing that? Maybe their site's down today. All right, we'll skip that then. Let's see what else we got. When I focus on the potential tornadic from the Energy Helicity Index, it's down here across northeast Texas, northwest Louisiana, southwestern Arkansas. Seems to be a sweet spot. It does trail off, though, here in eastern Oklahoma and northeast. We look at the tilting and stretching. In other words, the best shear in the atmosphere that can feed into an updraft region to see if that has an influence. Let's see, is it not updating? It was earlier. Let's see. No? Let me refresh this. All right, let me try it now. There we go. It seems to favor some decent low-level shear in this zone here. Let's see, in this region. Nice little bubble here, which is kind of the initiation point where these storms fire. Then they move out of that favorable area in a little slightly less favorable region. All right, let's see what else we got. All right, let's do SCP and STP, which is the significant tornado parameter, and supercell composite parameter. In other words, where's the best potential now for supercells and tornadoes to try to reside? Still favors this little corridor here, far eastern Oklahoma and also western Arkansas, and back down to that little triangular spot we mentioned earlier. It does include, again, these larger area of eastern Oklahoma and southeast Missouri. It's very weak. It's on the fringe location of that. All right, let me see if I have any sounding data aloft from Tulsa, for example, or anybody good. Let's see. No, go to last hour. So what happens is when airplanes take off and land at these airports, some of them record this profiler data, and we can take a look to see. Doesn't always work well, but in some cases they give us like an instant sounding. Like this one down here in Dallas shows us an instant sounding, and it actually shows that at that point there was no cap. In other words, the air was able to lift and produce storms, but the shear was all kind of the south-southwest. So they didn't have really any directional shear on this deal. But let's see, I'm guessing there's some storms that fire down there just east of the metro as a result of that. Let me go take a look. So I think I saw some earlier around Kaufman and Hunt County, but now they've moved off into Denton or Delta and Hopkins, and those will continue to move northeast into southeast Oklahoma. Otherwise, nothing since then. All right, anything else of interest? Yeah, we can look at this. This is the low-level rotation. So we had those three areas of storms I was showing you on radar. This one here, and this one here. Ironically, there really wasn't much in the radar data for here. We did at least see some weak rotation here and a little better one here. But these are the tracks of the storms here for the last 30 minutes. If I go back 4 hours, let's see if that'll even show us anything. May have gone back too far. All right, let's try 2 hours. So there's 2 hours. Let's see. Nothing else for the state. Those are just the three. I was trying to get the ones that happen out here in Arkansas. So there's some here in north central Arkansas that seem to have a little bit of low-level rotation in the product data. Let's see. And there's the 6 hour. Let me see. We had, looks like a guy way down here, southeast Oklahoma. That's about it. So far, so good. I think that's all there. So let's take a look at the latest data that's come in, and we'll see how the rest of this kind of looks like it's going to unfold. This starts us at 6 o'clock. There's those thunderstorms out there in the east. Continue to move into the far eastern parts of the state. Ironically, as that surface trough and front catch up and try to move through central Oklahoma by 8 o'clock, it does try to at least trigger some a few showers, or at least a weak thunderstorm. Didn't have much luck though, but it still tries as it moves through a 9 o'clock hour. Other storms continue to push into far eastern Oklahoma and Arkansas. This activity tries to get a secondary go at it at 11. Just doesn't really do much. So it's just some piddly stuff that moves through. So all the rough stuff is pretty much now through. There's 7 and there's 8 o'clock, and then it's out of the state. Let me see what the old Texas Tech WRF had to say about all this. Wade still liked all those rotating storms on the eastern third of the state for this afternoon, firing up just east of Dallas. So it did okay, but it overplayed the rotation aspects of a lot of these. In other words, it was a little too aggressive, but it had the location pretty good. But you can see how it continues over. Let's see, there's
severe hail detected.
9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, midnight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can see how Arkansas through the overnight hours is going to continue to get these thunderstorms. And with that will be a little bit of hail, a little bit of wind, and yeah, there's still a risk of maybe a QLCS type tornado or two embedded within all that mess. All right, so let's take a look here at our storms. So as we talked about, the tornado warnings have been dropped on them. Let's see, as far as severe weather goes, probability of a tornado is still holding at 23%. That's just for some mid-level rotation shear in the atmosphere, but nothing low-level for rotation-wise. In the data that I can see at this point, there was a teeny tiny little area, but nothing significant. So that's good there. All right, let's go south. These guys just never could quite get their act together. Pegs and Moody's, so no big deal there. And then finally this guy down here named Bragg's still got some pretty good hail signatures in there with all that purple on the map. 1.25 inch size hail. Probability of a tornado, just see the new one's coming in, 13%. But when I look for any low-level circulation, I just don't see it. That's a little shear on the leading edge. And let's see, let's go down here, Pittsburgh again. This guy's got a probability of a tornado at 8% east of McAllister, but when I look at the data, same kind of deal. Good mid-level jet showing up really good, strong inbound here. Let's see, but there's just no outbound. So same idea. All right, and then there's some other little piddly stuff down here, far southeast Oklahoma. Okay, so that's what we got for you. So right now it looks like things are behaving. I'll sit back and monitor here for a little bit, and we'll see if anything gets out of control over the next hour or two. If they didn't already, I have a hard time thinking they're going to. I think that was really their best shot. When I put the forecast together, I thought our best windows from 3 to 6 primarily, and then I extended it to 7 because the system was coming in just a little bit later. So we're at 6:30 now, so the sweet spot of the window here is closing pretty quickly on anything here in Oklahoma, but there's still some storms out there, so we'll have to keep an eye on things. All right, well, listen, hey, thanks for joining me. Anytime I do go live, you've got friends and family that live in other areas of the state or surrounding states, let them know. Just share it, while you're watching it. YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, whatever it may be, and put it to their wall or tag a friend in the comments, that kind of a deal. And that helps them to get that information that they're probably needing. And you could save their life. You don't even know it, but you might actually save somebody's life just by doing that. And also tell them to get my weather app, AT's Weather to Go. Same idea. They may not have paid attention much to the weather because of the holiday weekend, right? So you don't want them to get caught off guard. Okay, so that's it for me for right now. If, again, things look like they might get a little dicey, I'll be back on a little bit later. Until then, take care. We'll talk soon.